I believe in the power of shadowing. I believe shadowing works. It worked for me and it might work for you as well. I am Dr. John Park, the author of Daring to Speak, 22 Ideas to Improve Your Ability to Speak English. Have you ever shadowed someone? I did shadow a couple of people in order to accompany and observe them in a professional setting. And that's what actually shadowing is about, in a professional setting. But then the other kind of shadowing is for those who aspire to become professional simultaneous interpreters. So what they do is they hear a speaker speak and they repeat after that person 2 to 3 words behind. And that is what I'll be talking about in this video. And for me, shadowing worked and it can work for you. And also, I am aware that there are two camps of thought regarding shadowing. One camp of thought says, shadowing doesn't really work. Shadowing doesn't really help you improve or correct your pronunciation or intonation or rhythm or anything else. But then another camp of thought says, it does work done properly. And I am with the second camp of thought. I know that I have benefited a lot from shadowing. And so even now, every now and then, I will practice shadowing so that I'll feel much strongly about my English. When I feel like my English is getting rusty, I usually pick up this practice of shadowing. And it gives me some confidence. So I hope that you'll be able to really enjoy the kind of benefit that I have been able to enjoy. So in this video, I'll do 3 things. The first thing is I am going to shadow a Bible narrator, a favorite story of mine, which is the parable of a prodigal son. I'm not going to do the whole parable. I am going to only do the beginning, the first part of the parable. And I'll show you how I listen first, and then I read and repeat. And then the third time, I'll be repeating after the narrator without looking at the passage. And then also I'll show you how I do the whole thing. And then I'll reduce the speed to 0.75 so that you could actually follow the same example. When you hear someone speak a little too fast, even though he or she speaks at a regular speed, you can slow him or her down, and then repeat after him. And then you can practice at a normal speed. You can increase the speed so that that person can even go a little faster. So I'll try to do it. I don't know how well I will be able to do it, but I'll show you how to do it. And then I'll be also repeating after President Donal Trump, who recently gave a speech. And finally, I'll be showing you how I shadow a famous speaker, Pastor Rick Warren. And I'll shadow him with one of his sermons. So that's what's gonna happen in this video. So now I'm going to show you how I could practice shadowing and how you could actually practice shadowing as well. So what I'm going to do is that I'm going to play you a part of Luke chapter 15, the story about a prodigal son, the parable of a prodigal son. So you are going to hear that story, part of that story, and then after that, I am going to read and repeat after the narrator. And then finally, I'll be repeating after the narrator without reading, without looking at the passage. That's what's going to happen.
And he said, "There was a man who had 2 sons. And the younger of them said to his father, 'Father, give me the share of property that is coming to me.' And he divided his property between them. Not many days later, the younger son gathered all he had and took a journey into a far country, and there he squandered his property in reckless living. And when he had spent everything, a severe famine arose in that country, and he began to be in need. So he went out and hired himself out to one of the citizens of that country, who sent him into his fields to feed pigs. And he was longing to be fed with the pods that the pigs ate, and no one gave him anything.
And he said, there was a man who
had
2
said to his
sons.
father,
And the
"Father,
younger
give me the
of
share
them
of
said to
property
his
that is
father,
coming to me."
Father, give me the
And he
share of property
divided
that's
his
coming to me.
property
And
between
he
them.
divided his property between
Not
them.
many days later,
Not
the
many
younger
days
son
later,
gathered all
the
he
younger
had
son
and took
gathered
a
all he
journey
had
into a far
and took
country,
a journey
and
into
there
a
he
far
squandered
country.
his property
And
in
there he
reckless living.
squandered his property
And when he had
in
spent
reckless living.
everything, a
And when he
severe
had
famine
spent
arose in that
everything,
country,
a
and he
severe
began to be
famine
in
arose in
need.
that country, and he
So he
began to
went
be in
out and
need.
hired himself
So
out
he
to one of the
went
citizens
and
of
hired
that
himself
country,
out to one
who
of the
sent him into
citizens
his
of that
fields to
country,
feed
who
pigs.
sent him into the
And
fields
he was
to
longing
feed
to be
pigs.
fed with the pods
And he
that
was
the pigs
longing to
ate,
be fed with the
and no one
pods
gave him
that the pigs
anything.
ate, and no one gave him anything. So the first time you heard the passage, and then the second time you saw me repeating after the narrator while looking at the passage, while looking at the parable. And then finally, I'm going to show you how I can repeat after the narrator without looking at the parable.
And he said,
And
"There
he
was a
said,
man who
there
had
was
two
a man
sons.
who had two
And the younger
sons.
of them said to his
And the
father,
younger of them
Father,
said to
give
the
me the
father,
share
Father,
of
give me
property
the
that is
share
coming
of
to
the
me."
property that is coming to me.
And he divided his
And he
property
divided
between
his
them.
property between them.
Not many days later,
Not many
the
days
younger son
later,
gathered
the
all
younger
he
son
had
gathered
and
all
took a
he had
journey into a far
and took a
country.
journey into the
And there
far
he
country.
squandered his
And there he
property in
squandered his
reckless living.
property in reckless
And when
living.
he had spent
And when he
everything, a
spent
severe
everything,
famine
a
arose in
severe
that
famine
country, and
arose
he
in that
began to be in
country, and he
need.
began to be in
So he
need.
went out and hired
So he
himself
went
out
out
to
and
one of the
hired himself
citizens of
out
that
to one of the
country,
citizens of
who
that
sent him
country,
into his
who
fields
sent him
to feed
into
pigs.
his field to
And he was
feed
longing
pigs.
to be fed
And he
with
was
the
longing
pods
to
that
be
the
fed
pigs
with the
ate,
pods that the
and no one
pigs
gave
ate,
him anything.
and no one gave him anything. And he said, there was a man who had two sons, and the younger of them said to his father, Father, give me the share of the property that is coming to me. And he divided his property between them. Not many days later, the younger son gathered all he had and took a journey into a far country, and there he squandered his property in reckless living. And when he spent everything, a severe famine arose in that country, and he began to be in need. So he went out and hired himself out to one of the citizens of that country, who sent him into his field to feed pigs. And he was longing to be fed with the pods the pigs ate, but no one gave him anything.
And he said,
there was a man who had two sons.
And the younger of them
And the younger of them said to his father, Father, give me the share of the property that's coming to me.
And he divided
his property between them.
Not many days
Not many days later, the younger son gathered all he had and took a journey into a far country. There he squandered his property in reckless living. And when he spent everything, a severe famine arose in that country, and he began to be in need. So he went out and hired himself out to one of the citizens of that country, who sent him into his field to feed pigs. And he was longing to be fed with the pods, but no one gave him anything. Now I'm going to show you how I practice shadowing of a few sentences at a time. So I'm going to do this several times in order to do the whole thing. And then after that, I will do the whole thing. So let me start with the first couple of sentences.
And we're going to win, and there'll be a lot of celebration when we win.
And we're going to win, and there will be a lot of celebration when we win. So those are the first two sentences. Let's go to the next one.
And we're going to win with as few lives lost as possible. That's the game. Win with as few lives lost as possible.
We're going to win with as a few lives lost as possible. That's the game. Win with as a few lives lost as possible.
It's a tough enemy. It's a tough killer. Far bigger, far more vicious than ever before.
It's a tough enemy. It's a top killer. Far bigger, far more vicious than ever before.
I appreciate you saying it, because the fact that we closed so early to China, and most people...
But I appreciate you saying it, because the fact that we closed so early to China, and most people...
Hey, look, I was called xenophobic by Sleepy Joe Biden.
Hey, look, I was called xenophobic by Sleepy Joe Biden.
I was called a racist by Democrats, a racist. I was a racist.
I was called a racist by Democrats. I was racist because I
decided that I didn't want to have people that could hurt our country come in.
Because I decided I didn't want to have people who could hurt our country come in. Okay, now we are going to go back to the very beginning, and then we'll do the whole thing.
And we're going to win.
And we're gonna win, and there'll be a lot of celebration when we win. And we're gonna win with as few lives lost as possible. That's the game. Win as few lives lost as possible.
It's a tough
enemy. It's a tough killer. Far bigger, far more vicious than ever before. But I appreciate you saying it, because the fact that we closed so early to China, and most people, hey look, I was called xenophobic by Sleepy Joe Biden. I was called a racist by Democrats. I was racist. I was racist because I decided I didn't want to have people that could hurt our country come in. So when you spend a little more time working on individual sentences several times to cover the whole passage, then you will be in a good position, good place to be able to practice shadowing the whole thing. I know it will take a little more time, but for me, since I was able to repeat after the president pretty much the first time, it didn't take much time to go over. I didn't have to go over it many times because I was able to pretty much repeat after the president the very first time. So I didn't really need to jot it down or see the text. I was able to simply repeat after the president. As you saw, I didn't speak at the same time as the speaker. I was a few words, 2 to 3 words behind the speaker. And what are the benefits of doing this, practicing shadowing? For me, it helps me to maintain the speed of the speaker, and also it helps me to mimic the speaker in terms of his pronunciation, intonation, and rhythm as well. And also it gives me the tension in which I have to follow the person. So in that kind of tension, I try to perform better, because there will be times when I will be put on the spot to speak. There'll be a time when I'll be asked to give an impromptu speech. I'll have to speak. And I think that kind of gives someone the kind of spontaneity to be able to speak on one's feet. And those are some of the benefits I think that are applicable to me. This time, I'm going to shadow a famous pastor, Pastor Rick Warren of Saddleback Community Church. Here we go.
Last week, we began a new mini-series on understanding how to hear the voice of God. Very few things are more important than this, because you can't have a relationship to God if you can't hear God. If all you do is ever talk to Him in prayer, and you never hear God speak to you, that's a one-way relationship. That isn't much of a relationship. God wants to speak to you. Now this week, I want us to look at the issue of how do I know when it's God? When I get an idea in my mind, how do I know where that idea came from, that impression, that thought? How do I know it didn't come from the devil? Or it came from the bad burrito I ate last night? Or it came from my own thoughts. I just thought it up.
So I showed you how I practice shadowing. And I actually did shadow President Donal Trump, Pastor Rick Warren, and also the Bible narrator. My philosophy is the more, the better when it comes to language learning, language acquisition. So as you give a try to different types of shadowing, and if you think this works for you and you benefit from it, please do it. And for me, it worked for me. It helped me to develop more active and better listening skills, and also helped me with my speaking skills as well. If you liked my video, please support this channel by hitting that like button, notification bell, and subscribing to my channel.